Usually when we talk about reality, there's um, this comforting, unquestioned expectation of solidity.
Oh, absolutely. It's just baked into how we exist.
Right. Like you knock on a wooden table and you feel that hard surface repelling your knuckles. You hear that acoustic thud and you just know it's there.
Yeah, you don't even think about it. It's a table, it's real, it's solid, and, it exists whether you're in the room or not.
Exactly. It's the ultimate intuitive assumption for us.
Because we evolved to interact with a tangible, predictable Newtonian world, right? I mean, that's what keeps us alive on the macroscopic scale.
But then you start peeling back the layers of that macroscopic reality.
Hmm.
You zoom in past the wood grain, past the cellular structure, down to the atomic level, and suddenly,
Suddenly, that solid table is like 99.9999% empty space.
yes, you step into the world of quantum mechanics,
Yeah.
and the comforting rules of reality don't just bend, they completely shatter.
They absolutely fall apart.
And that structural breakdown of reality is our mission for today. Welcome to the Deep Dive, everyone. We are exploring a truly fascinating stack of notes and excerpts from a project titled Jules 9000, Quantum Mechanics and the Science of Manifestation.
It's quite a collection of research.
It really is. And the big provocative premise we're tackling for you today is this is the popular, highly commercialized concept of manifestation, actually just quantum physics in disguise.
Which is a massive and honestly often radioactive question for traditional scientists.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, bridging that gap between the hard mathematics of the subatomic realm and the subjective experience of human consciousness, it's where academic physics often violently clashes with philosophical inquiry.
Okay, let's unpack this. We need to bypass the internet hype and look at the actual physics. The Jules 9000 project outlines a very relatable starting point.
The skeptic's journey.
Right. It details the journey of a researcher who initially just completely dismissed manifestation as absolute New Age nonsense.
And you can't really blame them.
No, you know the trope. Sit on your couch, vibrate at a high frequency, and poof, a sport car magically materializes in your driveway.
Right, which is a totally understandable critique, especially considering how the concept is frequently packaged and sold to people.
Exactly. It's highly monetized.
It often just sounds like wishful thinking masquerading as some cosmic law of the universe.
But this researcher's perspective completely flipped. And not because they, attended some pricey wellness retreat or something.
No, they actually sat down and studied the mathematical reality of quantum physics.
Which changes everything. They realized there are essentially two entirely different operating systems governing our universe. You've got the classical world and the quantum world.
And to really understand this paradigm shift, you have to define those two worlds clearly.
Lay it out for us.
So the classical world is the physics of Sir Isaac Newton and Albert Einstein's general relativity.
The big stuff.
Right. It's the physics of apples falling from trees, planets orbiting the sun, and like we said, the table you just knocked on. It operates on strict determinism.
I always picture the classical world like a perfectly constructed game of billiards.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Like, if you hit the cue ball at a highly specific angle with a perfectly calculated amount of force, you know exactly where the 8 ball is going to end up.
Simple cause and effect.
Exactly. It's measurable, it's visible, and crucially, the 8 ball is going to roll into the corner pocket, regardless of whether you, the player, close your eyes or not.
Right, the universe doesn't care if you're watching.
But then, and this is where it gets weird, the moment you zoom in past those billiard balls, down to the subatomic particles.
The electrons, the photons, the quarks that actually make up the billiard balls.
Yeah, the rules of the game just vanish. Cause and effect get completely blurred.
What's fascinating here is why those rules change. At the quantum level, reality isn't made of solid objects with definitive locations. It is made of wave functions.
Which is hard to even wrap your head around.
It is. A wave function is essentially a mathematical field of probabilities. An electron doesn't have a specific location until it is forced to interact with something else.
So where is it before that?
Well, before that interaction, it exists in a state of superposition, meaning it occupies all its possible states and locations simultaneously.
It's the equivalent of a video game glitch.
Yeah, exactly like a glitch.
You're playing billiards, you hit the cue ball, and instead of rolling across the felt, the ball suddenly teleports into the pocket. Or worse, it hovers in this ghostly state of existing in every single pocket on the table at the same time.
which is terrifying if you're trying to win a game of pool.
Right, and it only decides which pocket it's actually in the exact millisecond you turn your head to look at it. I mean, it defies every shred of common sense we possess.
It fundamentally rewrites common sense.
Yeah.
And that ghostly state of superposition sets the stage for the most controversial, heavily debated question in modern physics.
The big one.
Yeah. What role does the observer, and specifically human consciousness, play in forcing that probability to become a physical reality?
Which brings us to the exact mechanism where consciousness and reality seem to physically crash into each other, the observer effect.
Yes, the classic.
The Jules 9000 project highlights the famous double-slit experiment as the absolute core of this mystery.
And honestly, if you want to understand why quantum mechanics feels like magic, the double-slit experiment is the mandatory starting point for anyone.
Walk us through it.
Okay, imagine firing tiny particles, let's say individual electrons, at a solid barrier that has two vertical parallel slits cut into it.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
And behind that barrier is a blank wall, acting as a screen to record exactly where the electrons hit.
Okay, so if I'm shooting tiny paintballs at a stencil with two slits, I'd expect to see two distinct vertical bands of paint on the wall behind it.
Right. In the classical macroscopic world, yes, that's exactly what happens. But individual electrons don't do that.
Because they're weird.
Because they're quantum. When you fire them one by one through the slits, over time, they build up an interference pattern on the back wall.
Meaning what, exactly?
Meaning a whole series of alternating light and dark vertical bands. Not just two. In physics, an interference pattern is the unmistakable signature of waves interacting.
Like dropping pebbles in a pond.
Exactly like dropping two pebbles into a pond and watching the ripples crash into each other, amplifying in some spots and canceling out in others.
But wait, you said they were firing individual electrons?
Yes.
So this implies that a single solid electron is somehow acting like a wave, rippling through both slits simultaneously and interfering with itself before hitting the screen.
That is exactly what it implies.
Okay, that is deeply weird, but, you know, maybe electrons just travel in waves. The real glitch happens when physicists decide to get clever.
Right. They decide they want to see which slit the electron is actually going through. So they place a microscopic detector right at the slits to measure the path. They want to catch it in the act.
And that is where reality breaks.
Utterly shatters.
Because the moment they introduce the detector, the moment they just observe the path of the electron, the interference pattern vanished.
Yep. The electrons stopped acting like a wave of probabilities. It acted like a solid paintball again, forming just two distinct vertical bands on the back wall.
That's insane.
The mere act of measurement forced the universe to pick a definitive state.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate here, because this is where the leaps in logic usually happen. Wait, so are we saying that just by looking at a particle, a human being literally changes its physical behavior?
It sounds like sci-fi.
It does.
Yeah.
Like, couldn't it just be that the mechanical detector itself, by shooting a photon at the electron to measure it, physically bumps the electron and messes up the wave?
And that, right there, is the exact pushback that has divided physicists for a century. It's known as the measurement problem.
Okay.
Does the physical interaction of the measuring device collapse the wave, or does the wave only collapse when the information is finally registered by a conscious mind?
Which is a massive distinction.
Huge. And this debate goes all the way back to the founding fathers of modern physics. Albert Einstein, Niels Bohr, and Werner Heisenberg argued about this relentlessly.
I know Einstein famously hated the idea that reality requires a participant. I mean, it sounds like pure solipsism.
Oh, he absolutely detested it. Einstein actually asked his colleague, Abraham Pace, "Do you really believe the moon is not there when you are not looking at it?"
Wow. He really didn't buy it.
Not at all. He believed in an objective reality. He argued that quantum mechanics must be incomplete and that there are hidden variables, physical mechanisms we just haven't discovered yet, that determine the electron's path, regardless of whether we are looking or not.
But Bohr and Heisenberg won that debate, didn't they? How did they justify the idea that reality is dependent on observation?
Well, they championed what's called the Copenhagen interpretation. Heisenberg formulated the uncertainty principle.
Right, I've heard of that.
It proved mathematically that you literally cannot know both the exact position and the exact momentum of a quantum particle at the same time. The act of measuring one property inextricably blurs the other.
It's like a cosmic trade-off.
Exactly. And then Bohr introduced the concept of complementarity, arguing that the particle and the wave are just two sides of the same coin, and the experiment you choose to perform dictates which face the universe shows you.
So they basically said Einstein was wrong about the hidden variables.
Yeah, they posited that there is no deep, hidden objective reality. At the subatomic level, you cannot separate the observer from the observed. The universe is a participatory sport.
A participatory sport. Man. Okay, so if our conscious observation is inextricably linked to the physical state of a subatomic particle locally right in front of us in a laboratory, what happens when we scale that up?
Oh, it gets wild.
Right. Like what happens when we look at phenomena across vast distances?
Then we leave the local laboratory and enter the deeply unsettling realm of non-local phenomena.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the Jules 9000 materials bring up quantum entanglement here. And when I first dug into the math behind entanglement, it genuinely felt like reading a science fiction script happening in real life.
It defies all our spatial logic. Quantum entanglement is a phenomenon where two or more particles become intertwined in such a way that the quantum state of one particle instantly dictates the quantum state of the other.
Regardless of distance.
Right, regardless of the physical distance separating them.
The key word there is instantly, not at the speed of light, instantly.
Yeah.
If one particle is sitting in a lab here on Earth and its entangled partner is sitting in a crater on Mars, and you observe the particle on Earth to have a spin-up state, the one on Mars collapses into a spin-down state at that exact microscopic fraction of a millisecond.
Yes, this is exactly what Einstein derisively called spooky action at a distance.
He really had a nickname for everything he hated.
He did. And it bothered him immensely because it seemingly violates the ultimate speed limit of the universe, the speed of light. Nothing, not even information, is supposed to travel faster than light.
But entanglement does.
Entanglement suggests that space itself might be an illusion at the quantum level, that there is an unseen underlying web connecting the fabric of reality instantaneously.
Hold on, though. It's one thing for two isolated electrons in a super-cooled, highly controlled vacuum chamber to be entangled.
Sure.
It's another thing to say a messy, warm, biological human brain is experiencing macroscopic quantum entanglement.
That's the leap a lot of people struggle with.
Right. Shouldn't the intense heat and chaotic molecular activity of the human brain cause immediate quantum decoherence? I mean, shouldn't classical physics completely override any quantum weirdness at our physical size?
Well, for decades, the entire scientific community agreed with you completely. They assumed the warm, wet environment of biology would destroy delicate quantum states in nanoseconds.
But that's changing.
It is. That assumption is currently being challenged by the emerging field of quantum biology. Scientists are now discovering that biological systems have actually evolved to harness quantum mechanics.
Wait, really? Like what?
We see it in photosynthesis, where plants use quantum superposition to find the most efficient route for energy transfer.
Wow.
Yeah, and we see it in the avian compass. Migratory birds literally use quantum entanglement in their retinas to physically see the Earth's magnetic field.
That is incredible. So the biological hardware capable of sustaining quantum states does actually exist in nature.
Precisely. And researchers like Sir Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff have theorized that the microtubules inside human brain neurons might be structured in a way that allows them to sustain quantum entanglement.
Okay, so if the brain is utilizing quantum processes, that opens a massive door.
Huge door.
It provides a potential physical mechanism for things we traditionally just brush off as intuition or synchronicity. Like when you think of a friend you haven't spoken to in half a decade, and 10 seconds later your phone lights up and it's them. We culturally label that a coincidence.
Always.
But if our consciousness is fundamentally rooted in an entangled quantum field, maybe that isn't a coincidence. Maybe it's an actual non-local exchange of entangled information between two complex biological receivers.
And the Jules 9000 project provides a very specific narrative to ground this radical idea. It details an individual's experience with CE5.
Right, which stands for Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. For those unfamiliar with the terminology, CE5 involves protocols where groups of people use focused, collective meditation and highly directed intention to initiate contact with non-human intelligence.
Right, they aren't building massive radio dishes.
No, they're using human consciousness.
And the author of these notes explains that practicing CE5 fundamentally dismantled their classical understanding of reality, because the entire premise of CE5 relies on consciousness not being a localized byproduct of the brain trapped inside your skull.
but rather a transceiving mechanism capable of non-local communication.
Exactly. They are essentially attempting to utilize macroscopic quantum entanglement through pure, focused human intention.
They are projecting a specific, localized thought outward, operating on the assumption that the universe is tangled enough for another consciousness to receive it instantaneously, regardless of physical distance.
Exactly. And, the validity of CE5 encounters aside, the underlying philosophy maps perfectly onto the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics.
It assumes that intention and observation are active forces that physically interact with the larger web of reality.
Yes. But to your earlier point, it's one thing to theorize about human consciousness acting as a galactic radio transmitter.
Right.
How does this physics manifest inside the human body? If consciousness is collapsing quantum probability waves, how does that translate to the wet meat of the human brain?
What is the biological hardware for manifestation?
The bridge between quantum physics and human biology is neuroscience, specifically the science of neuroplasticity. The Jules 9000 materials pinpoint the realization that thoughts are not just ephemeral concepts.
They're physical.
They are electrochemical events that literally rewire the physical architecture of the brain.
For a long time, the medical consensus was that the adult human brain was a static machine.
Yeah.
You were dealt a neurological hand, and that was it.
Oh, yeah, you were just stuck with it.
But neuroplasticity proves the brain is highly malleable. I like to think of it less like a computer and more like a network of dirt roads.
Oh, dirt roads. I like that.
Yeah. Like the more you drive a certain route or think a certain thought, the more paved and permanent that road becomes. If you constantly force your focus onto a very specific, obscure route representing a new habit, a new skill, or a persistent belief eventually, that dirt road gets paved over.
It becomes a superhighway.
Exactly. It becomes the only route your biological hardware is optimized to take.
That is a highly accurate way to visualize it. Neurons that fire together wire together. When you focus your intention and attention on a specific thought pattern repeatedly, your brain physically reinforces those synaptic connections.
You're sculpting your own brain.
You are physically sculpting the organ inside your head to optimize for a specific reality. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this is the exact biological mechanism behind the placebo effect, which the project materials ask us to deeply consider.
We so often dismiss the placebo effect as just fooling the brain,
Yeah.
as if it's a parlor trick.
Right, like it's fake.
But it is so much more profound than that.
It is the ultimate proof of intention-altering biology. Think about it. A patient is given an inert substance, a sugar pill, but they are told by an authority figure that it is a highly advanced, powerful painkiller.
And the patient deeply believes it.
Yes. And that belief, that focused way of expectation, doesn't just make them feel better conceptually. The intense intention forces their endocrine system to physically manufacture highly specific, chemically active endogenous opioids.
That's incredible.
Their biological reality transforms and the pain ceases, completely independent of the inert pill. The thought literally becomes physical matter.
The belief is the observer collapsing the probability wave of pain into the physical reality of relief.
Yes.
And this connects perfectly to a very grounded story in the sources about offshore life.
Ah, yes, the offshore drilling example.
Yeah. The author discusses what working in the extreme, high-stakes environment of the offshore oil and maritime industry taught them about survival, focus, and intention.
Because in those environments, you are dealing with heavy machinery, volatile elements, and deep-sea isolation.
It's life or death every day.
It is an environment of extreme physical danger where a wandering mind is literally lethal.
And the source implies that living in that razor's edge state teaches you the raw, unadulterated power of intention. When your physical survival depends on absolute, pinpoint focus on safety protocols, you realize how dramatically your internal mental state dictates your external physical outcomes.
Because in that extreme environment, the offshore worker is essentially acting like the detector in the double-slit experiment.
Oh, that's a great way to frame it.
Right. The environment presents an infinite wave of chaotic, potentially catastrophic probabilities. By intensely focusing their observation and intention strictly on the protocol and the path of survival, they are actively collapsing that wave of infinite danger into the single, narrow reality where they survive the shift.
And their elevated neuroplasticity is just the biological hardware recording and facilitating that quantum collapse.
Precisely.
Okay, let's step back and look at the whole board here.
Let's do it.
We have established that at the subatomic level, measurement and observation dictate the physical state of reality. We have established that non-local entanglement allows instantaneous connection across space. And at the biological level, focused belief physically alters the structure and chemical output of the brain.
All scientifically validated concepts.
So what does this all mean? Are we finally reaching a cultural tipping point where ancient spiritual philosophies and modern peer-reviewed science are just using different vocabularies to describe the exact same underlying mechanics?
That is the ultimate convergence the Jules 9000 project is pointing toward. It forces us to examine the increasingly blurry line between theoretical physics and spirituality.
Which makes a lot of traditional academics very uncomfortable.
Highly uncomfortable. But the materials explicitly ask us to examine the overlap between quantum mechanics and popular spiritual teachers mentioned in the source, specifically Bashar, Abraham Hicks, and the overarching concept of the law of attraction.
Because when you strip away the branding and listen to the core teachings of Abraham Hicks or the channeled material of Bashar, their entire vocabulary relies on words like frequency, vibration, alignment, and resonance.
Which are not mystical terms.
Not at all.
They are the foundational terms of quantum field theory. The law of attraction posits that like attracts like, and that maintaining a specific frequency of thought will draw a matching physical reality into your localized experience.
And historically, the scientific community has completely balked at this as magical thinking, new age nonsense, like we said earlier.
But when you overlay everything we've just discussed, a universe where particles exist as fluid waves of probability until a conscious observer interacts with them,
Right.
where distant systems are instantly entangled,
Yeah.
and where belief manufactures chemical reality, those spiritual teachings suddenly don't sound like magic at all.
They sound like a pre-scientific layperson's description of a participatory quantum universe.
Exactly. This raises an important question. What if the law of attraction isn't a mystical decree handed down by the cosmos, but rather a literal biological and quantum mechanism?
Which is wild to think about.
It is, and that is what the ongoing search for empirical, peer-reviewed research is currently trying to quantify.
And measuring that is incredibly difficult, right? I mean, how do you isolate and measure human intention in a double-blind, placebo-controlled laboratory study when human consciousness itself is the variable you are trying to test?
You can't. The observer is inextricably tangled in the experiment.
Right.
It is difficult, but the disciplinary walls are coming down. Fields like psychoneuroimmunology are currently proving exactly how microscopic changes in thought patterns drastically affect the physical efficacy of the immune system.
The mind-body connection is becoming measurable math.
Exactly. Quantum biology is proving that entanglement and tunneling are not just laboratory curiosities, but the fundamental drivers of life itself.
So, to bring this all the way back to the premise for you listening, we started with a provocative question. Is manifestation actually just quantum physics in disguise?
And based on the synthesis of physics, biology, and the Jules 9000 excerpts, the answer is a highly probable yes.
The physical mechanisms are absolutely there.
They are. The observer effect, macroscopic neuroplasticity, non-local entanglement, they all point to a universe that is far more interactive and responsive to our presence than classical Newtonian physics ever allowed us to believe.
So manifestation probably isn't magic. It might just be physics that we don't fully understand yet.
Exactly.
The ultimate takeaway from peeling back these layers of reality is this: your thoughts are not isolated, irrelevant echoes bouncing around in the vacuum of your skull. They are fundamentally a part of reality. You are participating in the creation of reality every single time you observe it. So stay curious, stay quantum, stay galactic.
And as you go about your day, let me leave you with one final lingering question to ponder, something that scales everything we've just discussed up to highest possible level.
Oh, I love these. Let's hear it.
If our individual thoughts, beliefs, and observations are constantly interacting with the quantum field to shape our personal, localized reality, what is the impact of our collective consciousness? Are the massive global events we experience every day, the sudden societal shifts, the unpredictable movements of human culture, simply the result of billions of human minds accidentally manifesting a shared, massively tangled quantum reality?